All right, well, good morning. I'm so excited to be with you. Goldie, thank you so much. AIScoop, thank you for allowing me this opportunity. So this is going to be a bit of a fear and redemption story. We're going to talk a lot about risk, right? The risk surface has changed fundamentally for all of us. The vectors of threats that we face are just growing exponentially. And this is a function of, unfortunately, the rise of AI. We've seen AI democratize nefarious capabilities across the globe. It's empowering crime syndicates. It's enabling hackers to do more with less. It's empowering individuals to do bad things. And so that creates an existential threat that we have to deal with. At Babel Street, we are constantly worried about risk and risk intelligence, whether that's in a financial instance, whether it's in a government instance, in a homeland security application, a defense application. That's the world we find ourselves in. But the good news is that that tool that is creating a more complex surface area by which threats can attack us is the tool that's going to actually offer our salvation and our hope to combat it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to hit on a couple themes. We're going to talk about the role of data in that, which is what I'm really passionate about. I think several speakers, it's interesting to note that this conference is about AI, but what you're going to hear throughout the day is one of the most important components or facets of AI is data. And that's why I titled this talk, The World is Talking, and AI is finally fast enough to hear it, because we are all letting off digital signals. Digital breadcrumbs, digital fingerprints, digital exhaust. And that exhaust creates intelligence, and that intelligence allows us to mitigate risk. So we live in this connected world. In the last 2 years, we generated 90% of the data in the history of the world. We have about 15 billion IoT devices, and that number is going to double by the end of this decade. We generate roughly 330 terabytes of data a day. In developed worlds, each of us have roughly between 15 and 20 connected devices. I bet you many of you this morning woke up, or last night like me, you posted about your activities for today. I made a LinkedIn post, not good OPSEC, right? So everyone knew where I was going to be today, what I was going to do. I got in a car. That car had a GPS device, told me what destination I was going to arrive at. We are leaving digital breadcrumbs everywhere we go. And we live in this highly connected world that is accelerating the rate and creation of data that we can extract and use for intelligence to mitigate risk. That's been done over time. I think that's the interesting thing. We've used this data historically for many, many years. But what's really happened is the rise of technology to help us overcome this. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of where we've been and where we're going. And so in that context, we talked a bit about the data, but how are we unlocking the insight and the intelligence in that data? There's a couple things that have transformed this old world that was driven by manually based tradecraft, that was driven by really sort of expertise and understanding of the data and bringing and linking it together. And today what we're doing is we're using algorithms that have unlocked the power. So AI has given us this great opportunity. There's a couple transformative events that happened. The first was back in 2012. We had the rise of convolutional networks applied in computer vision. This took unstructured data that had tremendous insight and allowed us to apply it at scale and at speed that we'd never seen before. The second major evolution that occurred was really around the advent of generative AI, large language models. So we had the rise of transformers, which gave us this ability to analyze text in parallel as opposed to sequential, and attention mechanisms, which gave us the ability to understand context. There's been a lot of conversation about the importance of understanding context, right? When you look for an orange, you don't want an orange wallet or sweater, you want the fruit. That context is important. So that was the rise of generative AI. It really gave us the ability to understand unstructured information at scale in a way that we never had before. And then you pair that most recently with the rise of agents. Now, what are agents? Well, there's nothing more than generative AI, large language models, but they're imbued with certain powers. They have chain of thought reasoning. This gives agents the ability to think sequentially through problems, decompose them, understand them. Then they can act. They use react capabilities so that they can go out and they can access tools. They can use those tools to analyze information, bring back information. And they can do this in a looping context so that they have the ability to determine whether or not, based on a goal that you assign them, they have achieved the goal and objective that they are trying to achieve. That gives us an ability to massively scale our ability to understand information. And that's the fundamental shift here, is we don't have to manually extract value from data anymore. We can look to agents to do that. And the future of AI is going to be AI both as a tool and as a worker. So as a tool, you can think about the tools that allow you to predict, to classify, to understand things with these AI algorithms. But as a worker, we're going to imbue agents with tradecraft. We're going to give them personas as investigators to go forth and understand the data that's out there, to bring it back, to analyze it on our behalf, and surface it up for us. I want to try to give you a concrete example of this, something that we work on constantly. It's called the shadow fleet. These are ghost ships. These are vessels that are moving sanctioned oil. Today, they're extremely difficult to track. One of the early indicators that these vessels are taking and doing illicit activity is something called AI signals. These are used and required by maritime law to have on vessels over a certain size. These illicit vessels will turn those signals off when they conduct illicit activities. The minute one of our agents sees an AIS signal go off, it starts looking across a corpus of data to understand what has transpired. In this example, when that vessel turned off its signal, it was doing a ship-to-ship transfer. The agent was able to find the satellite images, understand what was happening, and flag that as a risk. We can connect other data as well. That agent can go, and this is the important thing of this connected world we live in today, can go look at things like individuals on the vessel. We can look at ad tech, RTB data, and understand that individuals working on that vessel, even though they may be at sea, even though an AIS ping may be turned off, their phones are still pinging to Starlink or a maritime-based satellite, giving us insight into what that vessel is doing. We can look at bill of lading. We can look at shift manifests. Interesting fact, even when you're doing illicit activities, you still obviously are insuring those activities. It's fascinating what people do. And so when you can look across this corpus of data, you can find extreme insights and value. And I think that's what's so fascinating about this, is you can uncover a connected world through all the data we've got today. And that's the promise, I think, that we have for the future. And that's why I was so excited to hear several of the speakers talk today already about the power of data, which I think is so unique, is this increasingly connected world that churns so much data and a volume of data that is difficult to comprehend. AI has finally risen to the ability to allow us to sense it, to understand it, to assess it, to evaluate it, and create what I like to think of as a persistent sensing capability. That's the power of agentic AI. It's going to allow us to have an always-on sensing capability, to look at and understand this data, to act on our behalf as the human control operators, and to put us in the bridge of a vessel as opposed to in the coal-fired power plant of that vessel. We are now at the forefront making critical decisions as those agents surface those insights for us to evaluate. And that's why I'm so optimistic about where we are around this marriage between data and AI, and why I think AI is finally giving us the ability to listen to what the world is saying in a way that we never have before. Thank you very much.